Tired of feeling like you're spinning all the plates in your design business and at any moment they could all come crashing down? Are you feeling like you're so close to breaking through to the next level, but those consistent projects still aren't flowing your way? Are you ready to finally take your business from a hobby to 100K and beyond? Then welcome to the Six Figure Designer Podcast. I'm talking all the techniques you need in your design business to start paying yourself, get great clients, and finally break through that 5-figure ceiling. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of the podcast. And today I have an extra special guest with me. And you guys, if you're watching the video, are going to start chuckling because me and the guest are actually somehow we mind melded and are wearing the same exact color and such. So today my guest is the one and only Bryan Durkin. And full disclosure, if you guys have never heard me talk about Bryan is my lovely husband, and I think he's going to be an incredible guest today to talk about the art and science of selling, because I know so many of you designers just cringe when we talk about selling. So Bryan is the founder of MVP Team Pro and the host of the Driveway Marketing podcast, and he helps growth-minded businesses get unstuck, build referral machines, and scale with smarter marketing systems, AI, and execution. So no funnels, just what works in the real world. And he's definitely an expert to talk to us today about sales, because over his career, which spans 30 years, he's done over $350 million in sales. And again, 30 years in the business. So Bryan, thanks so much for being with us today.
And for those of you listening, my hair does not have blue stripes. So I'm just saying.
You too could have blue stripes.
I could. They wouldn't
So
be much to it. It might look more like a swim cap, but on the other side.
Oh, you guys have no idea how many conversations Bryan and I have on a daily basis about sales and marketing and clients. In fact, many times we do this from the hot tub. So we're also thinking about doing a spin-off podcast called, Marketing from the Hot Tub. But I digress. Bryan, one of the things that I've always marveled at is that you have basically been doing sales. It's a very natural part of your being. And
Oh, for
so
sure.
you have actually, I want you to tell the audience about the time when you first, one of your first sales jobs, which was selling Hallmark cards door to door in your neighborhood.
So let's just talk about like the lemonade stand business that we all think about. So growing up, I had two of them, right? I had a neighbor in the community I lived in. His dad was a Hallmark salesman. And so he would let us sell his samples at various times of the year. And I want to say, I think we got all the profit. I think him and I split the profits. So we would literally fill up red wagons full of stuff. I was probably 7 or 8 years old,
I was
maybe
going to
9 years
say,
old.
you were a little babe, weren't
I
you?
was a young guy, and then we would literally bug around the neighborhood, and we knew which doors to knock on because we knew who the cheapskates were, and we knew who the ones were going to basically drag everything in. And you make it a $50 sale when you're 8 years old is a pretty amazing thing selling stuff. So it was a lot of, and
Pre-qualifying clients at 7.
we were doing a place strategy, right? The place strategy is you got to be in the right place. So yeah, we were definitely doing. I never knew it. We're gonna skip going here because they're cheap and they'll yell at us or whatever. But and we did that for probably I want to say we did it for Easter, Mother's Day, probably Halloween, Christmas or something. I want to say we probably did it twice a year. And then when you're 8 years old and you get 150 bucks for 4 hours worth of work, it ain't a bad gig, right? So.
So you were side hustling from the tender age of 7 or 8.
I didn't even know it was side hustling. Hey, we had a high ticket offer, right? So we
You're
didn't even
well
know we
ahead
had
of
a
your
high ticket
time.
offer. So and then it evolved a little later on. I was probably 12, maybe 13. My brother was a farm guy into chicken, so we had a chicken coop in a residential community. Not quite sure why that was a good idea. So we would sell eggs to regular people, which was fine. We'd make a little bit extra money. But during the fall or the summer growing season, when you get the amazing sweet corn in Jersey, we would sell corn and eggs, and I would go out on Friday nights But here's the plus. I learned if I put hay in my wagon, I would sell more eggs and corn than if I didn't. So I was doing upselling and I had no clue what I was doing. It was just it was just part of me, right? So for me, it's like falling off a log, right? I'm just having a conversation, and we're helping people. And that's kind
So
of what
we
I've always,
you just like were already in tune. Like to me, you were always a natural born salesman because you've been doing it for so long. And then you were really good at identifying little nuances that clients were reacting to from a very young age and then adjusting your sales strategy. So I want you also to tell, there's so many stories that Brian's has about things he used to sell or do that just boggle the mind. But I need you to tell everybody the time in high school, because this is when we met, when we were in high school, that you were working at a motorcycle shop and you were selling helmets there,
so
amongst other things. But this is the helmet
it was
story.
yes, I work in the parts department. So this was we didn't call them gap years. I was numerically challenged for a early part of my educational career, so I had some lower numbers than normal, but I ended up great. And so I went to work for a family friend's motorcycle shop in New Jersey. And so I didn't know a thing about motorcycles, didn't ride them, but didn't know anything else. So quickly we learned that they made a lot of money on accessories, right? So what do people buy in accessories? They buy helmets, they buy jackets, they buy pants, they do buy whatever. So I want to say, so I got pretty good at, I don't really understand. Like people would come in and ask for advice about parts, and I would go talk to Mark, go talk to Rick. Like I don't know how to make your motorcycle faster, but I can make it look good, right? And so I don't know what happened, but as today, most people like black stuff, right? So black helmets were always the big seller. But my boss is like, I ordered 50 helmets and I ordered 50 black helmets and I got 40 black or 40 blue and 10 black helmets. And these are at the time probably $400 helmets. They're not cheap. Who knows what they are now? So over a period of time, I got really good at selling them. And so finally, at one point, there was a Saturday. Now think spring, New Jersey, right? We're recording this in spring. We live in Florida. It's a little warm. But for you folks listening up in other parts of the country, spring has sprung. You want to get out on your boat, your motorcycle, you want to get outside. And so everyone's flooding in to go to the motorcycle dealership to see what's what. And literally, like, I got two or three people I'm working on helmets, and then I'm like, sir, I don't like that color on you. I think you look better in blue. And then he's like, okay. And I bring him out blue helmets. And the next guy, blue is fast. And then I'm
That was
like,
the funniest thing.
and then I'm like, blue is, and to the woman, blue is sexy. And like, I'm just like, and they're just literally looking at me laughing. And why did it work? Just like I'm laughing now, I was laughing with them. I was enjoying the experience. It was fun and it was inclusive, right? So when you make sales not about what do I need to do to get you to buy a helmet today or buy a car today? Like the car experience is just, it's a complete, it's nobody wants to do it. But if you can make your experience more fun, like it's a lot more business. We do business with people we trust. But if you trust them and have fun and you genuinely care, it's a lot more fun. So really, that's what it boiled down to is that I was having fun, they were having fun. And I think I sold one day like $4,000 or $5,000 worth of helmets. Like that's a lot of helmets
Yeah.
in 1994, or actually it was probably 1990s.
All because they were fast or
They were
sexy
fast. Yeah, the
or
guy on the super
cool,
bike, it was fast. The lady on the
unusual, made you stand
unusual,
out.
whatever. So, and we had some crazy people come in. So we had some interesting characters come in. But again, and so um people enjoy hanging out with people that are having fun. So have some fun. It's not so hard. It's a skill in some cases, again, art and science, right? It's a skill in some cases, but for me it never was. And so
I
I've
know.
been,
So we all marvel. Those of us that have to work a little harder at it,
which is Pam.
marvel at that. Yes. So one of the things that I wanted you to talk about today, which is really the subject of the of this podcast today, is tell us about how sales combines both art and science.
Well, today if anyone has done any kind of, have been around any kind of business, you always hear about metrics, and Pam probably has talked about know your numbers. Everyone needs to know your numbers. And so there has been this run over the last 30 years in the sales, professional sales channels, that you have to have funnels and you have to run ads and you have to know your cost per clicks, all that other stuff, which are 100% true. But what we have seemed to have fallen away from, especially with all this AI stuff, is that there's this art, right? So there's this, how do you create this undenying human connection to your clients, prospects, and referral partners, right? So for some people, right, and some businesses that are transactional in nature, right? If you're selling granite at the granite factory, you're going to focus more on science than art because your product is 100% the same as everyone else's. But if you're in a creative business like design, or you're in a competitive field where you're dealing with people who help implement solutions, having more adherence to the art of what makes people have fun and buy helps you get there. Now, you still have to have the science, you still have to do the follow-ups. You still got to realize that they're not going to buy from me today. They're going to buy in 6 months. I want to make sure they buy from me. So there's a lot of mechanical science things behind it, but not just not just one or the other, but it's the combination of both. That's where you see, how do these people do it? Well, they do both, and some people know it and some people don't. And so by talking about it, acknowledge that you're good at art. I know I'm good at art. Science, not so good. There's other people behind me that do the mechanics and the numbers, but you can't rely on one or the other, right? Because if you rely on all on art, it doesn't scale. If you rely on all on science, your numbers are going to suck because you're going to be focusing on, not everyone's buying that way. So you got to combine them together, and it's going to change for everybody.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I was actually talking to a designer about this, and at one point I just said to her, talk to them and give them your professional opinion, your advice as you see fit. Meaning, like if you see a situation, even though they've talked about being budget conscious, making the suggestion as you feel it should be done is part of the process. I think designers get so caught up in closing the deal and I'm a creative and I'm not good at sales, and they kind of forget that this is a genuine conversation. This is just us talking and seeing where this can go, if it's a good fit, if I can help you with the problem that you have.
And that's an important point, right? Because as designers, my observation being around the design community for 30 plus years is that some people are really hardcore trying to get to the sale. Let's get you
Right.
going. And people today, especially, you realize that 75% of decisions are made before they pick up the phone. They know what they want, they know their general idea. They're just trying to plug into someone's umbilical cord to try to get it done.
Right. They've done a
So,
lot of research because people are, that's the way it works right now. There's a lot of
yeah, and
recon
that and
happening
that
behind the scenes. Yeah.
yeah, and that has changed, right? From when I grew up selling, that was the salesperson's job to educate. And now that doesn't happen, right? So now what can we do to do that? Well, we can use some science. We can introduce people. We can keep in contact with them. We can provide tons and buckets of value that
Yeah.
are real value, not pretend value.
That
But
come from the heart, really, right? Because as
exactly.
even designers, we're givers by nature and we always want to help people. So if we can also stay true to that,
I mean,
that's just a genuine connection.
if you gave them a physically printed, here's your home design dream book collector where they could collect all the things they wanted to do about their home designs, and they got it 2 years before they met you when they first bought their home. Wow, maybe that's going to be the differentiator, right? So again, that's the art of like, what can I do to be different? Because everyone else is doing the same thing. If you think about everyone doing the same thing, run away, right? There's a
Well,
in
that's
my
what the
world.
default is right now. Same language, look the same, same font, same approach, same word choice. And we're always trying to push people out of that sameness, right? Especially
So
in the creative
we've
industry.
used this term, we call it magnetic marketing. I'm sure Pam's used it. I've used it, right? If not, you know about it. So magnets do two things. They attract and deflect. So you want to attract the right and deflect the wrong. So if you talk about abundance and you're showing up at the affluent clients and you're being genuine to the community that supports them, you're going to be attractive to them, and you may repel those budget conscious penny pinchers who are trying to do a $100,000 project for 8 grand in a weekend, right? So, you got to think both ways. You got to think, I'm going to attract the right people, and you're going to deflect the wrong ones.
Right. So, how can designers approach sales in their business without feeling like manipulative or pushy or, just like they're going for the sale? How can they do it in a more natural way that feels good, but obviously still moves their business towards closing sales?
So I guess we can talk about a couple ways. One is I'm going to ignore all the ad things. So if you're pushing out ads and people are filling out a form on your Facebook page and you're doing a free something to get something, we're going to ignore all that. we're going to focus on direct referrals through the end user customers and referrals through partners. I think we're going to focus on referrals through partners because to me, it's what Pam and I are insanely
Passionate
dedicated
about,
to,
yes.
right? Like and if I put my partner number into my sales numbers, probably billions of dollars, not hundreds of millions, but that number Pam talked about you were probably the last time I checked were direct sales I was doing. I did all those numbers by partnering with people, right? So Pam, we talked earlier, Pam and I were talking pre-call about where I
Yeah, we
came
did a
from.
pre-call interview in the
We did a
kitchen. That's
pre-call.
hilarious,
We've
but
only
that's
been
what we
together for a long time. We won't talk about that, but we did a pre-call. So the town we moved from, I was called the mayor because I knew everybody. And now that we've moved far away. Brian, do you got a guy? Right. So the idea is that you want to be that center of influence where you can help genuinely connect people and not always for benefit, right? Tony Robbins talks about if you're not giving, you're not living. So if you think about that in your business, like what can I do to give? And I'm not just saying go to countless charity events and go to countless networking events, but pick a handful of people that genuinely align with one, your customer, two, your values, three, the types of customers you want to work with. It's so much more interesting and fun and get to know them. By the way, it's not going to happen in 30 days. It's going to take 3, 6 months. But if you generally give yourself about that concept and give to them and learn about what makes them and actually give without the expect of getting, right? A couple things will happen. One, you'll find the takers. I guarantee you're going to find people that are takers and they never give. You're
right.
going to find those people very quickly because taking doesn't always and giving doesn't always mean customers. It means they're not giving of their time, they're not giving of their insight, they're not giving their relationships, right? There have been people in my business who I've deflected away from because they were just takers and they just took. You would refer them 10 customers and you wouldn't even get the time of day from them. Guess what? That's not happening anymore. It's a two-way street. We got to be working on this together. So
Mm.
one of the concepts we use, don't let the name sound scary, but we call it a Dream 100. So, and it's, you don't want 100 people if you're listening to this, but if you had 10, 12, 15 people, even five to start with, who are the five most influential people in my community that I want to know?
Right.
Right. And then if you think about those, what is it going to make up? In the design community, there's going to be some great remodeling guys or girls. There's going to be some great kitchen people. There's going to be some great architects. There's going to be some great realtors. There may be, other vendors who are complementary to your products and services. And then you're all selling to the same people. Why not make it create your own alliance, so to speak, of people that are serving communities? Because then it's a lot of fun. Like you
Yeah,
serve people, it's a lot of
let's
fun.
just kind of dive into that a little bit because one of the things there may be two schools of thought happening here, which is I'm a relatively established designer, so I have a sphere of influence. I have vendors and tradespeople that I'm currently working with, and always encouraging you to start with those people. If you're a relatively new designer, or maybe you've moved to a different area, you're maybe trying to figure out how do I start building those relationships? How do I start creating that network? And again, it's coming back to what Brian's saying is who do you want to do business with in this area? Who do you want to surround yourself with? Who are the people that are not only aligning with the type of customers that you want, but also are in alignment with your values as a designer and how you run your business as well? Is that also what you're saying, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so, where do you find them? Well, obviously, simple places. Who are the people most visible? So, what is it? Where we live in Naples, it's like a thing, right? So there are magazines, there are publications, there are groups, there are general groups, right? So you have general groups and specialty groups, right? The general groups are your chambers of commerce. You might find influencers there. You might find good referral partners. In our community, it's just an excuse to drink and pretend it's work. Um, there might be like a BNI thing where you're going every week, and if you're starting out, that could be a good place to start because again, they force you to give in order for you to get, kind of the way it
Right.
works. I personally think the cadence is it's great if you're painting houses or cutting lawns, but for interior design, it's a little tougher, but it could be a good place to start. And then also, your group may not be in your backyard; it may be regional, right? So it could be an industry group, it could be a mastermind you're in. It could be a mastermind you want to create or be a part of. It could be a peer group, right? So there's lots of ways to find those people. And here's the deal, because my business is helping people create conversations. Everyone's looking for new business. But you have to be like, hey, how can I? We're talking to the same people. What can I do to help you close? What can I help you to get more significant relationships in your life, business wise? So again, combining art and science, because again, it's all about them and not about you.
Right. So it's all about trying to figure out how we can, make that work together, how that partnership can kind of amp everybody else up, can like raise everybody's levels. And just thinking about, like what Brian says is who in your area is somebody that you want to be doing business with or that you want to have more visibility with, or who is even somebody in your industry or in your town that kind of knows everyone, who's the virtual or perceived mayor, I guess, in your town that knows a lot of people. Because we always talk about how you follow the breadcrumbs in your conversation. So the person you may be talking to may not be a referral source for you, but they're going to say, hey, I know Mary, or I know Joe. Maybe you should talk to them. And then those connections start to expand from there.
So I'm going to share a little story about a previous client we worked with. Happened to be in the design business, and they were going down the wrong road. And so give them a little bit of help, a little bit of nudging. Stop going to BNI, go to these other groups, right? So she started, this is a woman, started going to other groups. And then what did we do? What did we collectively do? We identified who were the 25 or 30 most influential people, because here's the deal with builders and remodelers. Let's use them as an example. They typically have a geography because they have a life, right? They typically have a certain type of client they're working with their budget. So if you're doing work on a street that has $3 million homes and versus a street that has $100,000 homes, they're not going to be the same type of contractor, right? So if you drive down or as you're going through them, you're going to see that there's again 6, 8, 10 different builders and remodelers doing work in certain communities. Pay attention to those people, right? The second thing you want to find out is do a little recon. There's this thing called the Google. Google the name of the builder, right? Look at their past projects. Do they have stuff on the press? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Also, then decouple. Are they working with designers? Just because they're working with a designer, that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a good thing. And good builders probably have 2 or 3 designers they're working with. And if you're a designer, you probably should have 2 or 3 builders you're working with, 2 or 3 architects you're working with, and 2 or 3 realtors. Because the reality of it is the cadence of these kind of size companies is maybe they only work on 6, 8, 10 projects a year. So if only 2 of those people want to work with designers and you're only talking to one of those and the other designer got the other 2, you're left out in the cold. Back to the
Plus, you
numbers
don't
again,
want to
right?
have all your eggs in one basket. Like we've all
Yeah,
been
for
there
sure.
where, you get tons of referrals from maybe one source and it all seems great and it's wonderful. And then something weird happens. It could be a million different things. And next thing you know, the referrals from that one source have dried up for various reasons. And next thing you know, you're starting over. So we always
And
want you to be looking at different groups of people and have multiple referral sources. So
and
one
the
thing I
react
want you to
oh,
talk about, Brian, is let's talk about the varying states of yes. Like one of the things that I find
can
with
I interrupt you for 1 second? I apologize. I want to back
yeah,
up on what you talked about.
yeah,
Um, so we talk about the scariest number in business is 1, right?
yeah,
So 1 is because 1 minus 1 is 0. Don't be afraid of telling you because your client here they're gonna say like, oh, I do whatever. I design outdoor kitchens and you do 20 projects a year with some guy that specializes in outdoor kitchens and they like, well, I want you to be my exclusive designer. And then you go, great. Well, when are you going to give me the other 30 kitchens? And they say, well, we only do 20 kitchens a year, but you get all of them. Like, well, okay, well, my business, the way to build the business I want to do 100 kitchens a year. So I need to work with 5 of you. So who are your 5 favorite competitors that you guys complement each other? Because you don't want to just give away you don't want because they all want exclusives. And they'll be like, that's great. 5x your business, 10x the business, whatever it is. And they're gonna be like, well, I can't possibly do that. Well, then it's okay. And I know you're gonna work with other designers, and I want you to experience other people, but you're just gonna keep coming back to me. It's okay, right? Because I'm known for X, Y, and Z.
right. So you definitely want to be having multiple conversations. And to your point, like if so I'm working with a designer that does helps a lot with and works with a pool company. And she's doing a lot of just like finish selections for them. But literally, she had one that she was working with. I'm like, why aren't we working with all of them? All of the people in your neighborhood I mean, in your town that are also doing high end pools. So I want you guys to be thinking, bigger because when you have more choices in your business, when more opportunities are coming your way, that gives you a lot more freedom, a lot more creative freedom, a lot more financial freedom because you get to choose what projects you take. So let's circle back to, because this is another problem that I see really frequently, is that as designers are evaluating opportunities, if the yes that's coming their way is not within the next 2 to 4 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks, it's not considered an opportunity. And we talked about this in our pre-interview call about how yeses can come back around. Like you're laying a lot of seeds, a lot of groundwork for projects that could be coming around, yes, in a week or 3 weeks, but also 3 months, 6 months, a year from now.
So go back to the power of one, right? So one's scary because if you're only counting on one deal, what happens, right? That
If it doesn't
customer, that
happen,
referral
if it does
partner,
happen, yeah,
sick mother-in-law, brother, kids, next door neighbor has a graduation to go through. There's a million things that may stall the deal, but may not kill it, right? So one of the core concepts of kind of why should I buy? I want to buy from you, right? That's what this is
right,
all about. So when they're ready to buy, they come to you. And so hence you think about the science, right? So the science is I don't remember the numbers of the math. Let's just say 5% of your buyers are going to buy right now. Like they're ready to go. Another 15%, they're going to say right now. That might be a week to 3 weeks or 4 weeks or a month, some short-term thing. That's 15 or 20% of your yeses, right?
right,
Now we get to the next from 80% to 50%. That could be 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, but they're still yeses. They
right,
still want to work with Pam or Mary or Giselle or Maria, whoever. They want to work with those, but they're just not in the cycle yet. They got to sell their other house. Their parents' cottage in Michigan needs a rehab first, and we're going to spend the summer up there. We live in a seasonal community, so we hear this stuff all the time, right? So you just don't know about that. In fact, Pam's business, not too long ago, someone came out of the woodwork. It's been 2 years since we heard from them,
yeah.
and they came back. Why is that? Because Pam was being relevant, she was being present, she was sharing on a regular basis.
Yeah, and keeping in touch. So that's the other thing is not everything's a right now, but if we have mechanisms in place for you to be keeping in touch so that when they are ready, that's when you get the call because you're still the one.
Right. And you could do it if you're not doing a newsletter, that's fine. But if you put together, here's what's going on this quarter,
Yeah,
here's what's
even a
going on this
simple
month,
email. That's
just
so
send a
easy.
simple email. And here's the secret. Shh, don't tell anybody. There's three things that should be in your newsletter. You want to thank them for being in your world. That's it. Thank you for being in the world. And when you're ready, I hope you call me. The second thing is share something that's going on with you and your family. For people that are on Pam's lists, you're going to hear about all the things about business and baseball. We are known for the business and baseball thing. And the third thing, what's going on in the community? So if you're serving, West Palm Beach, Florida, and you're not talking about all the amazing things that are going on in your community, you're not in the know. You're not. So if someone's thinking about rehabbing a place, or their brother is thinking about rehabbing a place, or sister, you got to be in the know. So you got to be, I'm not saying you have to be seen. The influencer thing is different, but be relevant and be pertinent and be present. So. Big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah, and one thing that we talked about even that I think is a natural tie into what you're saying is there's a really easy way to make an impression on somebody and keep in touch with them. And so we talked about the simple thank you, like keeping a stack of thank you cards on your desk every day or in your car, right? And so why don't you talk a little bit about that technique?
So we'll do the same thing with two prongs, right? So one is you meet someone, you have a great conversation, and we all get excited. Then guess what happens? You send an email and they don't respond. And then you're like, man, nothing ever happened.
Yeah, what
So
happened?
what
Why don't
happened?
they like me?
They didn't like me. Well, guess what? Life happens, right?
Get
So the
busy.
first thing you're gonna do after you meet them, let's just say you meet them, you did great. You did a great job. You met them. You had coffee with them at a Starbucks, whatever. Get a handwritten card out, send them a note. Hey, Pam, I wanted to thank you for the 45 minutes you spent with me today. It was genuine, fantastic, and I'm excited for what's to come. Can't wait to talk to you soon. Bryan. Take that, put a stamp on it, stick it in the mailbox by the next morning,
You mean
right?
like snail mail?
Yes, you know
We
why?
love
Because in the
snail mail
meantime, they're going
around
to
here.
get 52 emails about back projects, stuff is delayed,
Yep.
and then they're going to go to their house or office and they're going to get this thing in the mail that says, who sent this? Who sent a thank you card? Now,
Yep.
I will tell you a practical story rolling the same thing. is that we work with bigger clients doing cool stuff, different things, and our number one performing campaign doesn't matter if it's an email, a phone call, or a card. Guess what the beginning of every one of those is? Thank you.
Hmm.
A customer that sells industrial parts. Guess what we do? We say, thank you for taking the time for letting my team give you a quote so that we have a chance to earn your business, right? And then they get a thank you from the service director. Then they get a thank you from the sales team. Like, so again, everyone else just sends a quote. All we do is we touch them three more times. There's some marketing reasons why to do that, right? So again, what could you do to do that? Could you follow up in a week with an email? Hey, did you get my card? That's it. Make sure they got, oh, I mailed you a card. Oh, the
It's a
postal
great
service.
opener too, for instead of saying just following up, just be
No, just following up, just checking in. I don't
nobody
check in,
nobody wants to hear the just checking in email.
just checking in, and I hope this finds you well. No,
Oh
those
yeah,
two
we never
things
want
should
to
be
see that either. Take
never,
that off your
never,
list,
ever do
Chat
that.
GPT people.
Yeah, God, I love AI. And don't do that. All right. So the second component is that, and this is a more advanced technique, right? But if you spent 20 minutes a day serving, so again, Pam's talked about previous episodes about collecting your leads, and if you're not being the Luxury Client Academy, I'm a shameless plug, right? But track your leads, right? Because they matter. But go ahead and look at your referral list, your lead list, whatever it is, and what can you do to serve one person every day?
Right.
So if I know, so I know one of my clients is into banjos, right? So if I find out that there's a banjo thing
A
happening wherever,
banjo convention in their area.
banjo convention, hey, I saw the banjo convention happening in wherever. Are you going? And his response will be, I missed that. How did I miss that? Right?
Right.
Another client's into fishing. Hey, did you see this show with this guy? There's someone I know I went to high school with. He's on TV. Hey, did you ever see this show with so and so? Mike
Right.
Weinhofer went to school with Pam and I. How cool is that? Oh my God, you know that guy? I watch him on. Again, we're breaking down the business conversation into human components, right?
Right.
And even more advanced technique is to give them gifts. Dan Kennedy, who I adore and follow like crazy, he has his private clients. He shops for Christmas presents 12 months out of the year. And at Christmas time, they get a box. What do they get in the box? If they're all into one of his clients, he talks about is a pen collector. So he'll be at some weird place. He'll see some weird pen. He'll buy it. He'll be somewhere else at an airport. He'll buy something else. Like literally. So he sends them a box of things related to writing and pens because he knows he's nuts about it. So how cool would that be if you had a client that you want to work with that you spent $100 on? I
Right.
mean, if you think about it, what's a design job worth? Hopefully more than $100. Again, know your
Way more.
numbers.
And also to your point, what we're doing in the Luxury Client Academy is tracking some of these interesting facts that I know designers are just sort of glossing over. And I just did a podcast about this. When somebody mentions their favorite team or a special hobby, or they have a kid doing some kind of, sport and they're trying to get into college to do sports or whatever. These are the things that we need to be remembering as we're bringing, like Bryan says, that human component to sales because it also feels really authentic, which I know is what, many creatives are worried about is doing something that feels sleazy or pushy or out of their comfort zone. But you all are lovers. You're all sweet people who want to help your clients. And we're just saying, pay attention to some of these details and then bring them up and bring those connections back, those human connections.
So I'll share another Pam story, right? Because again, Pam, this is a learned skill for her. This was me, it's natural for her, it wasn't. So over the years of her business, this has become something. So we identified something probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. 100% of her clients at one point, they were all executives, they live in a fancy place. So they all had a certain financial means. They all drove European cars.
Yep.
They were all golfers
Yep.
or lived near golf communities if they weren't. And the European cars were all like 10 years old.
Right.
They weren't brand new Bentleys, whatever. They were 10-year-old Mercedes, 10-year-old BMWs. They had a couple of them, right? They had their fancy go to the club car, but their daily drivers were all these European cars, right? So what a great, hey, how do you like your three? How do you like your 5 Series? I was thinking about getting one for my kid, but and all of a sudden the conversation isn't about design. It's
Right.
about this amazing experience they have with these old BMWs. Or I remember I had
Yeah,
a
like
client.
how reliable is it, or how much do you take care of it, or where do you go to get it work done, and all of these things. It was
I
a
had a
car
client who
story.
was very persnickety. I knew he was very persnickety. And I talked about some old German car he had. And he goes, I love it. He goes, but I spend $3,000 a year just taking care of I budget $3,000 to $5,000 a year to budget preventive maintenance. So what did that tell me when we were going through the sales and negotiation cycles? Hey,
Mhm.
listen, I'm going to make sure maintenance is in the front end. I want to make sure we talk about how the fact is our company is going to maintain the level of integrity that we have built.
Yeah.
Can't, it's not something you can learn, right? Um, Early in my sales career, I read upside down. I would learn how to read upside down. What I did, I could see the proposals on their desk. But we used to do that. We used to have in-person meetings. That worked. Sorry.
Back in
Sorry.
100 years ago when we
Back
were
in 100 years
clicking
ago,
on
right?
tablets.
Before we
Yep.
had the Google. You'd look at their walls, right? People wouldn't think. You could go in everyone's, so even your clients, if you go into their office, what's there?
Yes.
You
Be
go into the
very
living room.
observant.
It's
What
their
what
children.
college did they go to? What's their favorite team? What do they like to do? Are they one of our builders around here does like a whole barbecue. They're part of this like yearly barbecue, whatever,
He does.
competition.
That's his friend. And by the way, he happens to be a neighbor of ours, and he's also a Gator fan. And guess what you see when you drive down his driveway? A 10-foot fiberglass blue and orange alligator
Yep.
that says "Go Gators," right? So he's taken it to the an extension of his brand. But if you walked into his office wearing a Florida State jersey, you're not getting very
Yeah, you're
far,
getting
right?
too far. Yeah.
So there's things that so again,
What's
so
your
there's
people?
things you can learn that are these output signals, right? That they do that, right? So
But
social media.
I think designers already have that skill because we're so incredibly observant. We can observe subtle nuances in textures and colors and all these kinds of things. So I just think that they can really transfer those skills are so easily transferred to
But then
observing.
but the science tells me do something with it,
Yeah, well,
right?
that's the other thing. So the other thing we talked about, which is coming back to the science, is done is better than perfect. We both say this a lot. You guys may have heard people talk about the B works good enough. Um, just don't be so paralyzed in making something, magazine worthy at all times that you actually never move forward with any ideas or any contacts or any thoughts about marketing your business.
I'm gonna ask Pam a question. So which episode
Wait a minute, you
number of
can't do
this
that.
is on the podcast? What's the episode number we're at?
We are going to be this is going to be episode 99.
Amazing. Did you think a year ago that you'd have this many, or a year and a half ago that you have this many episodes?
No way. No, no, not at all.
Do you think your later episodes are better than your first ones?
Yeah, so yeah, we've talked about this before. Like y'all are going to be horrible at it. Just come to terms with it. It's not going to be comfortable. You're going to be a little bit awkward. I'm working with a designer now who sent me her first discovery calls, and again, this is what we do in the Luxury Client Academy. We hear your discovery calls, and she was like, "This is awful." And we kind of been talking through it. And the last time she sent me a note and said, I nailed that thing. I nailed that discovery call. I am so much more confident in my value. So just let it happen. Take your one step and put one foot in front of the other, and it will get better, especially if you have somebody by your side. But yes, you get better at all the things. You get better, you do more podcasts or do more speaking engagements when you're doing presentations to clients, all of that. The sales process, that all gets better over time.
And the simplest place to start is thank you. Everyone can go find, apparently they still sell thank you cards. The postal service, by the time this airs, might cost $17 to mail a postcard, but
But you know what? It might be worth it. So who cares?
and go to your mailbox today and see how
Get
many
a
pieces of
twenty
mail you
thousand
get.
dollar design job for saying thank you, knock yourself out. It's still
Yeah.
worth it.
We this is goes back a long time ago, and Pam talked about shock and awe boxes. Again, everything she talks about is all stuff we do in real life. We delivered a proposal for a couple $100,000, and the response was everyone else emailed it in. What did we do? We sent a box with, I don't know, waters, sparkling waters for everybody. She knew how many males were on the board, how many females. So the guys got little tool things for their golf bags, and the women got shopping bags. They all got chocolates, other stuff in a proposal. And their answer was, well, if you care enough about this to deliver a proposal, we can't wait to work with you. Like,
Yes.
this is not fantasy, like
And it's not
guru
hard
stuff.
either. It's really
It's not
not
hard,
like
and it
it's
shows you
not,
care.
yeah. It just shows you care. And I know, like I said, y'all are love bugs. So I think that it's very natural progression and it's something you can easily step into. So Brian, let's just say, I think we've talked about lots of things today. We've talked, of course, about the art and science. We've talked about the simple thank you as a beginning part of something that you can incorporate in your business, literally tomorrow is start writing those thank you cards. We talked about how you can decide in your town to, create your networking sphere or your sphere of influence or expand your sphere of influence. We talked about that today. But do you have one final idea or thought that you would like to leave the creatives with as we embark on the next phase of our own sales journey?
So less thinking,
Or
more
doing.
doing. Just
Oh, don't we
beep,
all hate that?
do
Yes,
it.
it's so good
So
though.
imposter syndrome is real.
Yeah.
No one's expecting you to be this smooth closer, whatever. And actually, don't be the smooth closer
Yeah,
because
because it's
people
not
know they're
good.
being closed,
Yeah, it's
right?
not good.
And if you have more than, again, if once you start to build those numbers up, the numbers take care of themselves. Like if you only have two referral sources in your pipeline and you don't get 100% referrals from them, your close rate is zero.
Yeah.
So it's just math, right? So you need to increase the people that, and by the way, they're in the same boat. Everyone, especially now with all the stuff that's going on, it's, things are going to they're getting messy and they're going to be
Get a little
messy for a little
spicy.
bit.
So we have to shore up our businesses, right? And so everyone's still going to be wanting connections. They're going to be wanting to deal with quality people in their world. They're going to be wanting to deal with people like you mentioned earlier, Brian, that approach what they're doing with passion and with curiosity and with joy, right? Because we all want to be around those kinds of people, people that are passionate, people that push us, the people that make us feel really good when we're in their presence, people that are stewards of their own professionalism, like they want to be
Absolutely.
better too. So who doesn't want to be around that? So as you're going out in your world and making contacts with people, that's what you're looking for, and that's what you're looking to exude as well. So,
And guess what? There's going to be some people you're going to meet that you're going to take their business card or contact and throw it in the trash.
and
And
that's okay
that's
too.
okay.
And that works too, because not everyone's a client. Not everyone's a good referral source. I literally had a designer that said she met with a vendor and they talked about how much they hated designers in front of her. And she was like, I'm not thinking this is a good referral source for me. And I'm saying this is not, because they're not going to help you in any way.
Pam and I were interviewing bookkeepers, accountants a couple years ago, and one of them literally totally trashed my business model and spent 20 minutes saying how it's all just a bunch of shit and a bunch of garbage. So guess who didn't get a call back?
Was that the same
Um,
person that also didn't like numbers? I don't know. There was one we
no, there was another one that didn't
That
get
was
that.
the second one. You're
This
interviewing
was
a
the
bookkeeper and
CPA.
if they don't love numbers, then you're in the wrong place.
No, that
So
was this.
these are
This was the
things that,
CPA interviews. This was the
yeah,
CPA interviews. I was
these are
like, you got to be
definitely
kidding
things you
me.
need to be picking up on as you're talking to people. If they constantly tell you how much they hate designers and they've never worked with one that's done a good job for them, I mean, are you going to be the one that's going to convince them? Do you want to be the one that convinces them? I don't think you do.
I'm
So
shaking my head vehemently.
yeah,
Don't
we're all like,
bother.
oh, hell no.
Right.
So, that's the other part of the observation. So, Brian, any final thoughts before we let everyone go and get our thank you cards ready?
Just go sell something.
Yes, just go sell some shit, as they say.
Sell anything. No, just kidding. Just
Go
it's a
out and do it.
process, right? It never ends. You realize it never ends. We're
Yeah.
all learning. Um, it never ends, and the more chance to be curious and test stuff is the fun. So that's the fun part of the art is you can just test what people like and test what they don't like, and you'll find it very quickly. They like people like thank you cards. People like gifts.
Well, and
Doesn't
also
think
you
it's
just
you.
get, I think being curious is a great takeaway is just embrace being curious because as designers, we are curious. We love to learn and we love to discover things. So just treat sales like a curious process.
Exactly. That's great.
All
That
right.
was awesome.
On that note, we're going to say thanks so much, Brian, for being here, and we will see you next time.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for having me.